The two dropships entered Uridious' atmosphere with a jarring thud. To Trey, it seemed that the entire ship's hull began to vibrate and rattle, causing him to grab a tight hold of the straps that kept him firmly secured in his seat. One of the Drake Corp's agents noticed his discomfort and smirked, whispering to the guy by his side. Both burst out laughing, not bothering to hide their amusement at Trey's obvious discomfort. It's okay, Trey thought. Let him laugh. Fucking numbnuts. Drake Corps thugs don't know shit about the planet they're about to land on. Just the usual briefing pack, grab your rifle, and away you go. Trey, however, had done extensive research on Uridious. Not that the planet was unknown to him before the mission. Hell, everyone knew about Uridious and its fabulous wealth. The big corpos back on Earth had spent billions trying to secure the mining rights once the probe's survey of the Outer Rim had returned. But it had been Drake Corporation that had won out. Funny, when the heads of other corporations suddenly start to go missing or choke on their Caesar salads, how quickly your rival loses interest. Just then, the implant secured deep in Trey's auditory canal suddenly squawked into life, and Captain Mercer's voice filled his mind. Trey, what the hell's going on down there? Both dropships are way off course. What do you mean off course? Trey whispered back, hardly moving his lips, aware of the other men around him. Those assholes are not heading for the mining colonies. They're heading towards the southern pole of the planet. Drake Corps HQ there on Uridious. Sons of bitches, Drayton hissed back. They're gonna pull out any Drake Corps executives before they check in on the main facility. Suddenly, there was an ear-piercing shriek deep in Trey's head, and he cried out, pawing at his ear as Commander Dennings loomed above him, an evil grin on his face. Sorry, Lieutenant. Did I interrupt something? He said, drawing closer until both men's noses were nearly touching. Trey could swear he could feel the anger seeping from the commander's pores. My pilot's been monitoring your comms for the minute we dusted off. He's currently blocking your personal transmitter. You have no goddamn right, Trey growled. Actually, I have every right. I'm in command here, not you or your captain, me. And I will decide what I want you to know and when I want you to know it. You're only here because Drake Corps insists. You're nothing more than a get-out-of-jail-free card should the shit hit the fan, Trayton. Insurance. Nothing more. He straightened up. When we get down on the planet, you stay behind my men. Keep your mouth shut. Stay the hell out of our way. That said, he went back to the cockpit and strapped himself back down. Trey could feel the other man's hostile looks drilling into him, but he closed his eyes and ignored them. Moments later, the two dropships landed hard on the frozen heart of Uridious. No matter what Trey thought of the commander and his men, there was no doubting they were seasoned professionals. The minute the two dropships touched down, the men were instantly on their feet, grabbing up their packs, stored weapons, and making final adjustments to their survival suits. Just before the doors opened, the commander addressed his men. Okay, listen up. The priority here is to extract any Drake Corporation executives, get them safely into Dropship 2. From there, they'll dust off immediately and we'll carry on to Extraction Site 2, the mining colony. Right now, we don't know what we're up against, but life pods don't jettison from a planet for no good reason. You have all read my report about the state of the survivor we encountered. Still, we are pretty much in the dark here, especially with the facility comms down. So we're gonna take it nice and easy. Now lock and load, people, he said, hitting the switch and lowering the door. Instantly, the cabin was filled with swirling snow, and Trey quickly snapped his goggles into place. Even with the survival suit clinging to his body like a second skin and pumping warm air, he could feel the cold atmosphere of Uridious pressing against him, the wind howling like some terrible banshee outside. Okay, Dennings yelled over the wind. They ain't paying us by the hour. Move, move, move! Instantly, the men disembarked, forming a fan shape outside the door, weapons at their ready. As Dennings casually strolled down the metal ramp, Trey close behind him, trying not to slip on the thin layer of ice that had already begun to form against the ship's hull. Through the swirling mist, he could just make out the dark shape of the facility that was home to the corporate suits that managed the day-to-day operations of the mining facility. Okay, single file, gentlemen, Dennings said, leading the way. Keep your heads on a swivel. Trey fell in line, bringing up the rear and feeling very, very exposed with no one at his back. The hike wasn't long, but it felt like the wind took an almost gleeful joy at hampering their efforts. But at least the planet had been terraformed. Having to wade through this shit wearing a respirator and breathing pack would have made it all the more worse. Trey even managed a slight grin. Always best to look on the bright side when one's hiking through a freezing snowstorm on a frozen planet towards some unknown danger. As they drew closer, he noticed that most of the facility's lights were still on, although some flickered, casting weird dancing shadows on the facility, which loomed above them, tower-like and imperious. Emblazoned above the door, in pure gold, were the words Drake Corporation, building a better tomorrow for the people of today. Right, Trey muttered. Only if you're the right kind of people. Facility's on lockdown, Commander, one of the men yelled above the howling wind. Doors locked and the blast shelters are in place. Lee, Dang signaled to one of the men. Patch into the mainframe, get that door open ASAP. Yes, sir. The man huddled into the doorway, typing furiously at a PDA on his wrist. Moments later, the doors sprang open, revealing a plush-covered foyer within. Quickly, the men sprang into action, weapons at the ready, their snow-covered boots defiling the thick crimson carpet, their breath steaming against the white veined marble that hid the coarse steel beneath. Body! One of the men yelled, running over to a heavily carved reception desk where a man lay slumped face down. A large exit wound had shattered the back of his skull, and a blood spatter covered the walls behind him like some terrible mosaic. Trey hurled across, noticing the gun in the dead man's hand. Suicide, he whispered. No shit, Lieutenant. Dennings turned on him. How observant of you. Not that it matters, we aren't here for him. We can only pray that Drake Corporation's assets are still safe and in one piece. Jesus, I guess the little people don't mean shit to you, do they, Dennings? The commander turned back to him. That's right, they don't. Maybe something you should keep in mind, Lieutenant. Before Trey could form a reply, Dennings was already addressing his men. Okay, listen up. We're going to search this facility floor by floor. I know for a fact there's a built-in safe room on the top floor with enough provisions to keep 10 or more people alive for months. That's if the replicators and Recyc have gone down. Lee, he said, turning to the technician, try and get comms back online. I want computer access. I need to know what the fuck's going on here. The tech came forward and unceremoniously shoved the dead man's head from the chair, who landed on the carpet floor with a kind of squishing thud that made Trey feel a little green around the gills. Not that Lee seemed to mind. He was already jacking his PDA into the computer, unmindful of the congealed blood, skull, and bits of brain matter scattered all about him. Okay, we're splitting into 2 teams. 5 of you search the rest of this floor, he said, grouping up the men. Rest of you with me. Come along, Lieutenant. He snapped at Trey over his shoulder. We don't have time to admire the scenery. Trey quickly caught up as they headed up a narrow staircase that led to the 2nd floor. They hit the landing together, 2 of the men pushing through a pair of rosewood-colored doors. What Trey saw there stopped him dead in his tracks. Lying upon the floor, surrounded by shattered glass, were 2 bodies locked in a deadly embrace. Nearby was an overturned snack machine. Chocolate bars and snack cakes lay scattered all about like silent witnesses to whatever atrocity had happened here in this darkened hallway. Silently, the men moved forward, their weapons trained on the 2 bodies. Trey moved with them, his own sidearm drawn at the ready. Holy shit, one of the men gasped as Trey took in the carnage. The 2 men had obviously attacked one another in some kind of maddened frenzy. Both were covered in blood. The man below had torn out his attacker's throat with his teeth, who had died with his thumbs jammed all the way up to the 2nd knuckle into the other man's now gaping sockets. One of the men reached down, feeling for a pulse. Then the body suddenly shifted, and Trey let out a cry and jumped back as the body of the man on top slumped to one side. Something that had been crushed between them now came into view, and Trey drew down on the creature. But before he could pull the trigger, one of the men closest to him pushed him back and snatched his gun away. Stay, he said, pushing Trey again. But Trey ignored him. He only had eyes for the withered creature that lay thankfully dead between the 2 men. In some ways, it looked like a common starfish found in the oceans back on Earth. But that's where all resemblance ceased. The thing had legs, 8 of them, multi-jointed, that ended in sharp-pointed spikes. Dennings barked an order, and one of the men flipped the thing over with the barrel of his rifle. The underside of the creature was a strange mixture of suckers and armored hooks, seemingly covered in dried blood. The entire thing was no bigger than the palms of a large man's hand, yet seemed endowed with some kind of deadly purpose. "You think that thing killed these men, Commander?" one of the men questioned. "No, they killed each other, obviously," Dennings mused. That's when Trey noticed a small welt revealed by the dead man's shirt that had ridden up as the body had shifted. Kneeling quickly down before anyone could object, Trey snatched up the man's bloody shirt, revealing the fish-white belly beneath that was now branded with the bloody shape of the dead creature on the floor. "Get back!" Dennings roared, kicking Trey hard in the shoulder, sending the man sprawling away with a hiss of pain. "Put that son of a bitch in cuffs," Dennings ordered. One of the nearby men shouldered his rifle and came towards Trey, who waited until the man was right on top of him before punching upwards, hitting the man hard in the crotch, who went down with a hiss of pain. "Son of a bitch," Dennings growled. "Do I have to do everything myself?" Just then, there was a roar of gunfire from downstairs, and panicked voices filled the airways. Dennings looked over at Trey, and for just a moment, Trey was sure he saw fear in the other man's eyes. Then, they were moving towards the stair, the screams of the dying echoing like the souls of the lost from below. Hey everyone, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I want to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video or for listening to tonight's episode of the podcast. Also, hitting the subscribe button on that podcast and or that YouTube video channel, because whenever you do that, it helps me be alive, which I very much appreciate, because if I'm not alive, And finally, as always, I want to thank everybody who is on my Patreon list. Especially, I want to give a huge thank you to Triller Tier Jackal, Brian Figueroa, Ethan Leon, Polaris Prospect X, Lake Rattler, Viceroy Scorn, Disciple, Delaney Melton, Strategy, Wolf Jameson, John G. Luna, SullyMan, Juan Mendoza, Rock Bottom Smasher, Elias Nahero, Brandon Mendoza, Sneck, BrimstonePandemonium, Caltuna, William Wellington, Scruffy the Janitor, Victoria Schwartz, Victoria Miles, Aaron, Emma, Kemza, Brenda Crow, Elijah Munson, LaQueda Canizales, MrCreepyPasta Peebus Pleaser, Travis, Smiley Psychotic, Richard Sundell, Huda Dante Kinkade, SimbasBloodyMojo, Mephistopheles, CursepoxPrimarch, M, Jettis Pet, VerbalHorror, Kearns, Mike, himbojerry, CrusaderChocobo, Corbin Dallas, Estebean, Hour Minute Second Time, Seclude, Salty Surprise, Red Shadowcat, Turtleman, Mr. Marcus Splits, Dirt Diver 030, Voice of Sand, Psychomel, Melted Lake, Tally Sue, Cronut 509, Stricken, Freddy Krueger, Hazy Nephew, Tommy Wall, Tommy Walters, Acid System, Sky Harbor, Nico Kyle, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Paulson, Corey X Kenshin, Diana Kraus, Jordan Humble, a man of many names, and every single one of you that's down there in the description, every single one of you that is able to give even $1, man, I cannot thank you all enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys are wonderful. You really do make my life easier, and I appreciate it greatly. To all of you out there, have a wonderful evening and sweet dreams.